Today's project that I want to share with you is a Halloween folio that is 5 by 4 inches, and it has a little wraparound closure piece that is attached and closed using a piece of Velcro. And I'm going to show you how I put all of this together in this video. I'm going to be using this 12 by 12 double-sided paper. I got this from Stampin' Up, and it is called Halloween Spells. I'll put a link and the name to all these supplies below. And we're going to start off with, and we're going to work on the cover. I'm going to trim this down to a size of 12 by 4. So we're going to use that full 12 inches of the paper. And now we're going to do a little bit of scoring. I'm going to first start off and let's score at 1 1/4 inch. That's going to be our flap. That's going to be the closure. And then let's move down to 6 1/4 inch. And we're making this with a hinge spine, our journal. After the 6 1/4 score line, we're going to go to 6 3/4. And let's score that. And then we're going to move to 7 1/4. And that will be our final score line on this cover piece. And you can see the score lines here. We're going to do some folding now. So I'm getting my bone folder, and I want to fold at each of these lines and really get a crisp fold there. So the first line is going to be for making really our front cover, where we had those 3 little mini lines together, almost separated by 1/2 inch. That's where we're going to make our hinge part of our journal. And we want it to fold this striped piece with all the black, purple, orange. That's our outside cover. And then here is where we're going to wrap around and fold. We did that score line as well. So you can see how on the inside we've got the score lines ready to make the hinge. So I'm going to take some of my double-sided tear tape, and I'm going to put that here. This is on the outside cover, but it's where the hinge is going to be folded down. So where we had those 1/2 inch score lines together, I'm going to place this tape. And so I'm trying to place it. It's kind of hard to see with the design of the paper. And so I found that it was easier to lay it down on that fold line so that I could see, because I want to put the tape right along those spots where it's going to be closed and exposed on the outside of the spine. And really, in thinking about this, I didn't really have to put the 2 layers of tape on it, because you really only need the one side to have tape because we're folding them down together. But I've got a double layer of tape now. Sometimes I will use glue here as well, but I just decided to go with the tear tape. Now that I've got the covers off, I'm just going to fold those 2 pieces together. And this is how the outside of the book looks. And there is our hinge. We have our hinge together, and it's ready to place some items. But before I do that, I want to round some of the corners. So it's mainly these outside corners that are going to be on the right-hand side of our little folio. Now, my corner rounder is having some issues, and I think I need to sharpen it a little bit with some aluminum foil, but I don't have that right now. So some of the rounded edges work, and some I have to come back and do a little bit of snipping with my scissors. I've made this hinge journal before, and so I wanted to add something a little extra to this journal. I have modified the size from ones that I've made before, but I also wanted to add a waterfall area in the back of this journal. And so I'm starting out using this orange paper, and I have 5 pieces that are the size of 3 3/4 by 3 inches. And I scored each one of those at 1/2 inch and folded those down. Now I'm going to put a piece of this decorative paper on the front of one of those, and so I needed to cut a piece of decorative paper to about 2 1/4 by 3 3/4. and I've put that on one of these pieces. Now you're also going to need a piece of cardstock that is 4.5 by 3 3/4, and I'm using another piece of that same orange cardstock. You can use any other color if you want, because really we're covering it up. But I'm going to take that and this first piece that I had covered with designer series paper, I'm going to line that up with the far left side. And remember, we have the fold from that little piece that the designer series paper is on, and it's making a folded piece. This is the first piece in our waterfall, and you can see how it's attached right there. We're going to really press that down, and then we're going to go and use our next piece that is already folded down. It's going to fit right there end to end, but we'll add some glue to this. And again, I'm using glue. You can use your tear tape if you would like, but I like the hold that I get from the glue. We're going to attach that there right at the end of where the previous piece ended. I like to use my bone folder to really burnish that and make sure the glue is pressed down. And this is our second piece of our waterfall, and you can see how the two pieces fit on the paper here. We're going to continue this on. We have our third piece that we're going to line up as well, adding the glue, and then lining it up on that piece of cardstock right where the previous piece ended. And just take your time and line everything up nicely. With these measurements, everything will fit as it should on that cardstock with the 5 pieces that we can flip back and forth. And this is how it's looking so far. 2 more pieces to go. I like to add waterfall pieces to my journals and albums. I think they're really neat and versatile. Some ideas of how you can use these waterfall pieces: you can add pictures to these. You can add journaling spots, like on this orange paper. You could add a section of white cardstock maybe, and that's where you can do some kind of journaling. Or it may be an area where you just want to add in other little embellishments for whatever the season is, for what your journaling is. We're going to do some decorating of our overall journal, and this might be a place that you would want to put things in. But I also do like to really use it for little pictures, and you can have smaller pictures that you can have made at different places and then add those into something like this and have that flip through. So that is the final piece for our waterfall, and as you can see, it lines up perfectly with that overall piece of cardstock. And there we have the little flow. Now you could leave this as is, but I usually like to go in, and after it has dried a while, I'm putting that block on there to let it dry. I like to add some little pieces to the end to really define each of the pieces. And so I'm taking 5 of these pieces and I've cut them down to a little less than 1/2 by 3 3/4. I want them to almost fill that whole little bottom section right there with just a little bit of cardstock around the edge. And that almost makes it fit right there. And you're going to see as I close the front, we're going to be able to see that little purple edge right there through. And so I also, one little thing I like to do is you can do it with different ways with your designer paper. I like to do usually a mixture every other one of the type of paper that I put on there, and that's what I'm doing with this. I have the purple, and then I'm going to go with black, and then purple and black. You can do that, or if you want to use all of the same pattern, it is totally up to you. But I like how this looks, and I like how it just defines that, and it still leaves plenty of room for whatever you're putting on that piece of paper, whether it be the pictures or doing some journaling or embellishments. So we're just going to continue adding the paper to each of those little tips of our little waterfall. So I also think that the kit that I'm using, the paper pad, has approximately 4 or 5 different sheets of paper that are double-sided. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're starting on one of these projects, that you have some coordinating papers to use. Now I also like to look at adding another little strip on our waterfall, and I take 5 of these that are going to be still a little less than 1/2 inch and by 3 3/4. I may have given you the wrong dimension on that last one. I think it's 5 5/8 by 3 3/4 for those ends. I will make sure I include that on the write-up. But I'm putting these pieces here in, I guess you would say, the top area of each of the flip sections, but it's really the last of the previous section there. And we're just kind of covering up any kind of folds or glue areas that we have. I think it just adds extra, and when you've got pretty coordinating paper, it just really adds a lot and goes so well. And then, as you can imagine, when you're adding cute little pictures on this, it makes it even cuter. So these waterfalls, I highly recommend giving these a try, and whether it be putting it in this project or some other project that you have, I think they're a great little thing to add. So it just takes a little bit of time. Just cut these strips out and then you can place them here. And we've got one more to go. We will be on that last little sheet, or the last little page of the waterfall. Now, I didn't include the little tip end of that because it was even with that last flip page. So you can choose to do that how you want there. And that finishes the waterfall. So the construction is all ready, and it will be time to put it into our journal when we're ready. So again, I think I'm going to place a block on there so all those little pieces can be set. So let's start with 2 more sheets of our designer series paper. We're going to have one that's a 9 by 3 and one that's a 10.5 by 3 5/8. And let's first start with the first one that is the 9 by 3. And we're going to do a little bit of scoring. So to start off with this one, it is a little bit smaller than our book. We're going to first score it at 4 inches. Then we'll move to 4.5. And then we're going to score it at 5 inches. So we've got those score lines there. You can see it better on that purple side. And then let's round the corners. I think that has a softer look than those sharp edges, but it's all personal preference. So I'm getting these rounded, and we'll go ahead and we'll do some folding of this piece. So we did those 3 score lines, and that's basically going to match with our hinge. So I'm going to fold on each of those 3 lines, and it's almost like we're forming an M. I kind of look at that from one of the sides. You're going to form or a heel, almost a valley or a heel, and then it just lays right on top. It's so easy. And then we have made 2 different pages. So we're going to need to put some adhesive on this. I'm going to go with glue for each of these pages, and I just like to put glue here on the inside portion that is going to match up. Now I'm going to try to line this up just about in the middle, top and bottom wise, and then we'll just squeeze that onto the hinge, fold it some, and just make sure everything looks like it's in its place. We're able to fold backwards and forwards, and that's going to be our first page that we're going to flip to. Now let's take a look at the second page that we have. This was the 10.5 by 3 5/8, and we're going to do some scoring here. First of all, at 4 3/4, and then we'll score it at 5 1/4. We're making that middle hinge again, and then we're going to score at 5 3/4. So you just have 1/2 intervals there in the middle. So now let's fold this piece as well, just as we did on the previous piece. It makes the little heel or valley, or if you want to call it an M or a W, that would even work. You just figure out which way you want your papers to fold in which direction first. It looks like I'm going to have the striped that's going to come as the the first page, the second page we come into contact with after we do our folding. And then I round the edges there, and it's going to be time to put our glue. That's exactly where it'll fit, right there, kind of in the middle again. I'm looking at some of this, and I think that the way that have done the dimension, everything should stay within the book. Fit well within the book, I guess I should say. Sometimes with pieces like this, if your hinge gets really thick, then it's making each of the pieces extend out just a little bit, just a hair. That can make a difference, but we've just got so few pages here, it's no problem. And we're going to see that as we're folding it. I was just making sure everything kind of extends just a little bit to the right, but that's okay, that we have the built-in area that's going to be for that fold. So everything can fit within the folded area. So we've got several pages that are coming to life. Now I've got the last little piece that we're going to put in the middle. We're going to make a little pocket, and this is an envelope pocket. So I've got 2 pieces of paper that are 2.5 by 4. They match. And as you can see, as I'm kind of lining them up and trying to determine exactly where I want them, I'm going to make a little notch using this circle punch, because we are going to make it as a little side pocket after we attach it to the hinge in the middle. And this will kind of close off our little folio. So I've already attached some of the tear tape that I'm going to use, and I put this here. Now, I also should have put some tear tape along the bottom. I don't know what I was thinking as I was doing it, but I'm going to go back and fix it here with some glue in just a moment. But the first thing I'm going to do is just mainly attach it to that hinge. And then we also need to attach our other side. But as you can tell, I left off the bottom again, and if we put anything in there, it could possibly slide out. I think the hinge and the spine might keep it in place, but if it was folded all the way one way or the other, it could come out of our pocket. So I'm just kind of lining these up, and everything should be in place, and it is as we attach it there. And then I'm thinking about, what about the bottom? So I'm just going to take some of my glue, and I can lift up the bottom because it's not attached. I didn't put any tape or anything there. And so I'm going to just put some glue under there. Things happen, and we just come up with a fix, right? So now let's do the other side and just put some of our glue under there. But that is putting the adhesive basically on 3 sides of the pocket. So then we have a way that we can insert something there at the little notch area. So here is our book with the pages that we have. And then I'm going to place the waterfall here on the back section. And so it should fit very nicely right there. And as I was doing this, I also thought it would be neat. We have the pocket that will come in from the side, but let's make a pocket with this from the top. So we're going to put adhesive, our glue, along the 3 sides here, the 2 sides and the bottom. I was making sure that I had it facing upward. So we'll put the glue here and put it on this back piece. I love the feel of these waterfalls. It's just a nice little structure. Line this up where we want it on our page. And then, of course, again, I'm going to use, I think, a block, and we'll place this on top and let everything dry. Once that is dried, it's time to do our closure. So I decided to use these little Velcro pieces, and if you know the little trick with Velcro, if you will line up, go ahead and line them up, because these are the sticky ones that are on there. Now, one of my concerns when I was putting this together is using Velcro and just having this decorative paper. I didn't want to possibly rip. The more times you open something with Velcro, it could possibly rip it. So I'm going to come up with a little fix here in a moment. And if I thought about that earlier, I probably would have done it first before I did the Velcro. But see right there, I don't really like that flimsiness. And so I'm going to add a little bit more structure here by adding a piece of cardstock. And I'm not crazy about that, but I also have that closure. I want it to kind of stand out because right now that paper is kind of busy, and so you can't really even see the closure very well. So I just cut out this little piece of paper that matches that size. It's a little less than 1.5 inches by a little less than 4 inches. So we're going to line that up along that little flap. And I had an idea already for something that I wanted to put right along the edge of the flap, but I wanted to go ahead and put this piece down first. So we'll let that dry. Everything's lined up now, and I'm just already feeling it's a little bit sturdier, and I'm feeling a lot better about that. So this is the little ribbon with the little pom-poms that I want to put here on the little end of that closure flap. And I love little pom-poms, and so I'm going to use some hot glue for this ribbon. I think it just helps it to be sure and hold it in place a little bit better. And luckily it all fits. We get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pom-poms on this piece, and we'll just trim off the edge there. I love this little ribbon. I think I got it at Hobby Lobby, but I love pom-pom ribbons, so I always like to get it. The only thing here, it does have a little bit of fray on it, and so I've trimmed this off, but I'm also going to do something to fix this, and that's use my fray check. I love this. I've had it forever. Sometimes I'll use a little bit of a lighter the fire to light the edge of a ribbon, but I didn't want to risk catching my paper on fire, so I'm going to use this fray check. It's almost like glue, but it just hardens there and it keeps that ribbon from fraying. So it'll need to dry for just a little bit, so I'm going to just set that up and carefully let that dry. And now I want to go back. I wasn't crazy about that orange. It doesn't look too bad from what I'm looking at here on the screen, but I decided I wanted to go in and put some decorative paper on top of that orange, and I'm going to go with this purple. It's still part of the line that matches all of this, the paper series. And so I'm going to put that. I don't know, the orange may have been just fine, but I went with the purple, and it's okay because we're going to do a little bit more decorating here. So I've got a couple of little decorative pieces that I thought would be good to add. I have this little ticket, and so we're going to glue that on the front here. I think that's so cute with the little kitty cat and the owl and the pumpkin. I've got this little cutout that says Halloween, and it's in the purple, and purple is one of the big colors in this paper that we've used today. So I'm going to glue this on as well. And we'll attach that here. And then the last piece that I'm going to add in is one of my little mini books that I recently did a video for, and I'll put a link to that video below. This is one of the ones that I did not include the little eye screw, the little hook on yet, and so it works great as a little embellishment, and I'm going to use some hot glue to attach this to this front cover here. And this is a spooky little Halloween coloring book. And so it gives it just a little bit of pop of, something extra that will extend off of our folio here. So now you can take a look. I've done a little bit of decorating and I've added some little embellishments. And I like to include these little embellishments here and not totally glue them down all the way. If you'll glue down just on like the edge or the top there, it will leave a spot that you can include some papers, just attach them in without even having to tape them in. I added this little tuck spot, of course, for our little place there. You can tuck a card in on that side. You can tuck something up under the flags. From this side on the hat. So that's a little trick that I like to use here. Even the little feet, you can attach something. So now we have our waterfall and a wonderful place on both sides for pictures or journaling. And then from the top, we can pull out the little tag card that we have, and it has a little spot on the back that you can do some journaling if you'd like. So this is my little Halloween folio. I hope you've enjoyed this. This was so fun to put together. There's so many little different things, and you can always use different kind of papers. You can do different kind of decorating, and I just love that you can use it in so many different ways. So I'd love to know how you would use something like this. Do you like to make journals like this? I do, and I hope to do some more, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know and make sure you're subscribed.